After John was arrested, Diep and James thought they had found peace. But little did they know, a darker conspiracy was waiting for them. Will they survive the relentless hunt and expose the terrifying secrets? Find out in this thrilling tale of danger and love. After John's arrest, Diep and James believed everything was finally settling down. However, the truth had not yet been fully revealed. While held captive, Diep accidentally overheard a crucial secret involving an international money laundering network. From that moment on, her life became the target of a ruthless group of assassins hired to eliminate witnesses. James, her devoted partner, refused to leave her side. He began to suspect there was an insider in their circle, as the enemy seemed to know their every move. As they ran and lived in constant fear, the bond between James and Diep grew deeper but was also tested by the ever-present danger threatening them. Can Diep survive long enough to expose the mastermind behind the money laundering operation, and will their love be strong enough to withstand the challenges ahead? If you love thrilling, unpredictable stories full of tension and suspense, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the unexpected twists in Diep and James' journey. Since the day she was rescued, Diep was no longer herself. She still ate, still spoke, still smiled with James, her lover, and also the CEO whose name once commanded respect across the business world. But behind her eyes was a storm. A mind in disarray, a soul that could no longer rest. The days she spent held captive by John weren't just terrifying, they were a silent nightmare that tore at her piece by piece. At first, she thought she would recover quickly. But the echoes wouldn't stop. Voices in the dark, half-heard conversations in foreign languages, fragments of meaning that lingered long after the silence returned, they haunted her dreams and bled into her waking hours. One night, while James was reading through documents in his study, Diep stood quietly at the doorway. Her face was pale. The warm glow of the lamp cast sharp shadows on her gaunt features, and her eyes held a trace of panic. "James," she whispered, voice trembling. He looked up, instantly alert. Her tone was different tonight. He stood and walked over. "What's wrong?" Diep clenched her hands, as if bracing herself. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "I remember now. When I was locked up, I heard John speaking to someone. It wasn't Vietnamese. It was English, and some French, I think. I didn't understand it all, but there were a few lines I can't forget." James froze, his expression tightening. "What did they say?" She repeated it, word by word, her voice barely above a whisper, as if reciting a nightmare. "The money's been transferred to Zurich. Hong Kong confirmed. She can't stay alive. She knows too much." The air in the room turned heavy, almost suffocating. James stood motionless. His gaze darkened, from surprise to suspicion, then to a sharp, quiet fury. "You're sure?" "Very sure," Diep said, eyes wide. His voice was low, but I heard it clearly. I didn't know what it meant back then. Now I do. James walked slowly to the window, staring out into the quiet night beyond the glass. He said nothing for a while. Then he turned back, eyes sharp as steel. This wasn't just a kidnapping. John is part of a global money laundering network. You've become the only living witness, and now, you're in more danger than ever. The words hit her like a cold blade. Her legs weakened beneath her. What she thought was over had only just begun, and the darkness awaiting her was far deeper than she feared. "They'll come after me," she whispered. James didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, placed a hand gently on her shoulder, and gave it a firm squeeze. "I'll contact the police tonight. You and your family will be under protection. But we need to be prepared. If they know what you remember, every second from now is a race between life and death." Outside, the wind howled louder. The windows trembled with every gust, as if the night itself was warning them. Diep leaned into James's chest, her heart pounding. The fear inside her no longer had a face, only a growing shadow that stretched longer with every passing moment, creeping closer and closer from the dark. That very night, James contacted an old acquaintance, Colonel Hui, a seasoned officer who had dealt with numerous transnational crime cases. The call was brief but carried weight. Within hours, a plainclothes special police unit arrived outside James's villa, spreading out to keep silent watch without revealing their presence. Inside, the atmosphere was so tense it felt like even a single breath might shatter everything. Diep sat on the sofa, her face pale. A cup of hot tea sat untouched on the table before her. "They're here now. You're safe," James said gently, placing his hand on her shoulder. Diep looked up, her eyes glistening with tears, yet filled with quiet strength. "I'm not afraid for myself," she murmured. "I'm scared they'll go after my parents, after the people I love." James didn't respond at first. Then he gave a slow nod. He understood. The people behind John weren't just common criminals, they were part of a system. Sophisticated, ruthless, unforgiving. Once they locked on a target, they never stopped, no matter who stood in their way. The next morning, the police quickly moved Diep's parents from their home to a safe house. Their identities and location were kept strictly confidential. Diep was only allowed to contact them through an encrypted phone line monitored by authorities. James, meanwhile, reinforced security at his company and ordered his tech team to sweep every device and camera for tracking software or malware. Their lives changed completely in under 24 hours. From a successful, high-profile couple bathed in the spotlight, they became fugitives in plain sight, moving according to police-dictated routes, unable to appear in public without clearance and surveillance. One quiet evening, during a rare moment of calm as they shared dinner in a soundproof, thoroughly inspected room, Diep whispered, "I never thought I'd live like this. Afraid to even step outside without looking over my shoulder." James set down his fork and knife, eyes locked on hers. "But you're still alive. And so am I. As long as we're alive, we still have a chance." There was something fierce in his gaze, a conviction that softened the storm inside her, if only for a moment. But peace was fleeting. The next day, James's encrypted phone rang. Colonel Huey's voice was sharp, tense. "We spotted a suspicious car circling your parents' house last night. Thankfully, a patrol team changed their route at the last minute, and the vehicle pulled away. But this might have been a probe, and it probably won't be the last." James tightened his grip on the phone, his voice cold and clipped. "So, they've started moving." He ended the call and turned to Diep. He didn't have to say a word. She already knew. Death was approaching, slowly, deliberately. And this game would never end unless they found the one truly pulling the strings. The news came at dawn. A group of unidentified men had broken into Diep's parents' house. They acted swiftly, professionally, and with chilling precision. If it hadn't been for the undercover police team stationed nearby who spotted them in time, that night might have ended in tragedy. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the message was clear: the enemy had made their move. It hit James like a punch to the chest. He gripped the phone tightly, then turned to Diep, who sat frozen, her face drained of color. There were no words left to say. They both understood, time was running out. This was no longer a threat. It was action. From that moment, James changed. The calm, composed CEO everyone admired disappeared, replaced by a man constantly on edge, riddled with suspicion. No one around him was above doubt anymore. The driver, the assistants, even the longtime bodyguards, anyone could be the mole feeding information to the other side. If there wasn't a leak, how could they know where your parents had been moved? James muttered, staring at the security map he'd redrawn by hand. We're being watched. Somehow, some way. Diep stepped beside him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. You're exhausted, James. Don't carry this alone. He took her hand in his. His eyes were bloodshot from days of sleepless vigilance. I can't leave your side. Not for a second. They're hunting you, Diep. And I couldn't survive if something happened to you. In that moment, the air between them thickened, a collision of two clashing forces, love and fear. They were still together, but peace no longer lived with them. Their kisses were hurried, their embraces tight and tense, always under the hum of security alarms and the ever-watchful eyes of the police. Their love still burned, but it was suffocating under the weight of danger. Each passing day, James realized he wasn't just protecting the woman he loved, he was protecting the key to a truth that could bring down a global criminal empire. Every time Diep recalled fragments of that overheard conversation during her captivity, James carefully documented every detail. The more they pieced together, the clearer the pattern became. There was someone at the top, a powerful, invisible figure pulling all the strings. But who was it? A former business partner of John's? A high-ranking official on the payroll? Or worse, someone standing right beside them? As trust began to crack, pressure mounted. Waves of tension crashed into them, day after day. Some nights, Diep would sit silently by the window, staring into the darkness, her chest tightening with a single, relentless thought. How much time do I have left? Can I survive long enough to expose the truth? James, for all his strength, wasn't immune either. The haunting thought clung to him. If he woke up one morning and she was gone, would he be able to go on? In this brutal game of cat and mouse, they weren't just running from assassins, they were racing against time, against doubt, and against the fear slowly growing inside them. The story of Diep and James is a perfect blend of love and suspense. Starting with a seemingly peaceful situation after John's arrest, danger quickly strikes in ways they couldn't have anticipated. Diep is not only a victim in this chase but also unknowingly holds a secret that could dismantle an international money laundering network. What makes the story so compelling is James' psychological transformation. He is no longer just a wealthy, powerful CEO but becomes a man consumed by fear, willing to do anything to protect the woman he loves. As the pressure mounts, their bond grows deeper but is also tested by the constant dangers they face. In a world filled with fear, doubt, and looming threats, their love becomes the only thing keeping them together. The story doesn't just revolve around Diep's life being in danger, it also raises big questions about trust, betrayal, and the risky decisions one makes in the name of love. Will they manage to uncover the mastermind behind it all and survive, or will they be caught in a deadly game from which there is no escape?